Hello and welcome to Fit With Us episode 58. I've been grilled for not pressing record because we started talking to Gemma ahead of time. I'm going to be nice and firstly ask Gary, how are we doing, Gary?
Very well, sir. Very well. Kyle, how are you?
I am very well. Gemma, how are you?
I'm very good, yeah. Tired a little bit. Didn't
Gemma,
sleep too well, but
your
lots of
signal's
caffeine.
your signal's quite good, by the way, for being way up in the North Sea.
Hey, we're getting like up to date with everyone. I've got fast fiber internet.
I
Imagine
thought you were
that.
still on 2G, iPhone 7.
Although saying that, you can't like the main part, like the main town of Shetland, Larwick, you can't drive through that. Like if you're not well, on the phone, obviously legally through my car, it cuts out, and that's like the main most populated part of Shetland.
Brilliant.
I'm
For
not.
anybody that
I was trying not to be ignorant, and I started googling Shetland before you came on the podcast, and I ended up watching 10 minutes of a TV series. I didn't realise it was a TV series.
Jimmy Perez. You should
oh,
know enough about Shetland. You've known me long enough, Kyle.
Yeah, no, I know, and that's why I felt I had to double down on this. I was like, I'm going to pretend that I know a lot more what to do about Shetland, and nah, not at all.
Gemma, for anybody that doesn't know where Shetland is, Shetland Islands, is that right? In saying Shetland Islands, you don't
Yeah,
want, you hate people that call it the Shetlands.
yeah, we're not the Shetlands. It's the Shetland Islands or just Shetland.
And where is it?
We are the very north of Scotland, but in the North Sea. We are actually closer to Norway, is what we are, mainland UK. So if you look quite often on a map of the UK, Shetland's in a little box next to Aberdeen. So people think that they can come to us on a day trip in a couple of hours and get back home. But no, it's a 14-hour ferry trip from Aberdeen, and we're not in that little box. We're right up next to Norway, and then obviously you go further up and you've got Faroe and Greenland and Antarctica. Not Antarctica, sorry, North Pole. So yeah, it's pretty windy, pretty cold, very stormy.
But
It's
beautiful.
it's beautiful, yeah, it really is. It's actually a stunning day today. I sent Gary a photo this morning at my window. Beautiful pink skies, like it's just calm, not windy, no clouds.
Well, I'm going to need to put my editing skills to the test again and put that photo right now so everyone can see it.
I'm currently
Ping.
on Google looking at images of Shetland just to get an idea of what I'm looking at here.
Do you know what it is? Do you know what attracts me to it most? The wildlife,
Mhm.
puffins and orca and
Well, this
dolphins.
morning, the orcas were like 6 miles away from where I am. I'm landlocked, so I would whenever I would need to go, I like to get to the sea to see them. But a little village called Scalloway, which used to be the old capital of Shetland, way back. We've got a castle and everything there. They were there. So and they were in Larwick the other day too. But they're constantly just circling the island. It's amazing.
Oh, I'm just looking at Scalloway right now on the maps. Fucking obsessed by it, honestly. Sorry
Uh,
about this.
Well, I've been trying to get you to come here for how long?
I
Like,
know, I know.
it's a 14-hour ferry ride that I'd say is probably a wee bit of a
yeah,
barrier.
yeah, definitely come in the summer. The winters, it's rough. Like I'm okay. I'm an okay sailor. I don't spew. I'm lucky in that sense. I can feel horrific, but I'm not actually sick. But I mean, it really isn't for the faint-hearted, and especially if you're not used to being on the boat as well, and you're going in rough seas and people walking about, people falling and broken legs and hips and all sorts. So it's just like go to your cabin, lie down, don't
Mhm.
move.
I'm assuming there's an airport there as well. Like you can get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we've got a little airport. Well, I was going to say we have two, but well, we do actually. We did have three, but one shut down. So there's in my village, just I can see it from my house. There's a wee airport, and that takes you to some of the smaller islands in Shetland because Shetland is multiple islands.
Yeah.
So the small islands are also have people living on them. But obviously the transport there, is quite infrequent. So that wee airport takes people there, and also air ambulances sometimes land there if they can't get to Sombra. But Sombra is at the bottom of Shetland, and that's the main airport. And that's where all the oil rig flights go as well, because we're
Mhm.
surrounded by oil rigs in Shetland. And the Coast Guard is based down there, the helicopter. But the majority air ambulances come into Sombra as well.
It's just like wee tiny Logan airplanes in it.
even smaller than the ones that you guys.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they're pretty dinky. I mean, it doesn't bother me. I remember because I'm so used to it. A small plane, I think a small plane would freak anybody out
Oh,
because you're like, how's this tiny little thing going to stay in the sky? But I remember when I went and did my trek in for Everest, then we were flying into Lukla Airport and on the mountain, and it's literally like on the mountain, and then if you go any lower, you crash into the mountain, and there's lots of crashes there, and everybody was absolutely freaking out, and I'm just sat there like, oh, this is great, look at the view, and they're like, how are you so calm? And I'm like, I'm so used to it. But yeah, it was like reeking of petrol, and the guy slicked back hair with the shades looking like something out of a film or something, and it was like, I'm just like total chilled, like. But no, it was yeah, it's, and then we've got flights from Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, so you could also fly here if you wanted to.
I bet you need to be a kind of a multi-millionaire to be able to fly.
It's so expensive.
Fuck it, honestly, it is wild. I've never seen flights so expensive for such a short
I know.
distance.
Yeah.
We'll talk about your trip to or your trek to Everest later on, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Share a wee bit about that ways. But one of the main reasons that we wanted to get you on was to talk about endometriosis. I'll be completely honest with you, I never heard of it before you had mentioned it. And I'll be completely transparent again. I still don't know a lot about it. I still don't know what it is. I still don't know what it does. My only understanding about it is through you. So it would be interesting if you could just kind of speak about it a wee bit. What is it? What does it do to your body? How do you cope with it? How do you live with it? And then, yeah, I know you're doing something behind the scenes trying to, make things better for people. So if you would like to speak about that as well, that would be amazing.
Yeah. So endometriosis is a gynecological condition where tissue is not the same. We have to make this very clear. Tissue similar to what's the lining of your womb grows out with your womb. And that tissue also can bleed with your menstrual cycle. So, it can grow on your womb, on your ovaries, on your bowels, your bladder, your urethra, which is the wee pee tube, kidneys. It's actually found all over your body. It has been. And what happens with this tissue is obviously it's grown, like if for me, for example, it's all on my abdomen wall. It was on my right ovary and the lining of where like my urethra was. I think I do have it other places, but it's difficult to diagnose, which I'll explain later. But so in your monthly cycle, when you're having your period, then this tissue can also bleed. And if it's in your abdomen and you're just bleeding out into your abdomen, then this blood has nowhere to go. It just sits. And some of it can be reabsorbed into your body, and some of it will just kind of sit for a wee while, and then we get adhesions. And adhesions is where everything just sticks down, and it looks like the best way I can kind of describe it. So I used to work in theatre, so I've actually seen this with my own eyes multiple times. Is like, like a sausage skin.
Yeah.
So it kind of looks like that. And when you go in and you have to inflate the belly with gas so you can see, because everything's all like flat and squishy. And then you see these like stringy, sticky bits everything's all caught and stuck. So what that can also happen, you can also get lots of adhesions, but it can also cause lots of complications and discomfort too. So with endometriosis, then obviously, depending on where it is in your body, it can cause different effects to you. So like I was saying earlier about diagnosis, so you can't diagnose endometriosis on like an ultrasound scan. It doesn't show up unless it's like something super substantial. But they do those to rule out other things like fibroids and cysts and adenomyosis and things like that. But you can get, like, it would show up on an MRI scanner. But again, what you need for a full diagnosis is actual surgery. You need to go in and have a look. Now, because endometriosis is so underfunded, and there's not much known about, and it's so specialized. There's not many people across the world that specialize in what we call the gold standard surgery. So there's two different types of surgery for endo. So you've got diathermy, where they burn the tissue. And then you've got excision surgery, which is the gold standard, where they actually cut it out. And the theory with that is the diathermy, it'll burn it, but it's obviously not removing it. The tissue can continue to grow and grow back. The excision, you're cutting out, you're taking it away. The theory is that it doesn't grow back. However, I know it does, because I've had both types of those surgeries. So you go in, obviously laparoscopically, which is keyhole surgery, into your belly button, a couple of wee incisions on your belly, and have a look around. Now, if you have a surgeon who is a gynecologist but doesn't specialize in endometriosis surgery, you're more likely to have diathermy. And they also maybe won't look into like your bowels and stuff in other areas. So for me, that was what happened my first time. I had surgery. They went in, and it was an amazing, fantastic surgeon. And I worked with him as well, lovely person. And I had diathermy, and 8 weeks after my surgery, I started to get pain again.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a long time at all.
No, I was thinking like, nah, this is in my head. Like, this has to be phantom pains. Like, what's going on here? And then I was like, oh no, this feels the same. And then by that point, I was having my follow-up post-op appointment with him, and I said to him, and he was like, there is actually some people can be really close after surgery. Some people, it might only come back three years. And he was like, unfortunately, at the moment, because you've had surgery, there's nothing else that we can do. So I had to ride it out for a good few more years before I could get my second surgery. But going back to, the surgery itself, obviously, it can present in different ways for people. So there's more ways that it might present for people more kind of bowel issues. So obviously that would indicate that it is on your bowels or your rectum. There's people who present with like more nerve pain. And again, that's super specialized if you're going in and muddling about with people's nerves. So it all depends on how it presents for someone. And then obviously, depending on who your surgeon is, you're also limited on what treatment you can get. And then obviously during the surgery, then if they burn it or cut it out or whatever. So for me, between my first surgery and my second surgery, it had spread, and I knew it had spread. So I'm really in tune with it. I spent a really long time learning my body and listening to it and pinpointing places in my body where I was feeling things and trying to link up what that could be. And obviously seeing it every day as well also really helped me visualize where it was in my body. And when I went for my second surgery, I was really fortunate to have this fantastic surgeon. He's from India, and he comes over to Shetland to do surgery, and he does the gold standard excision surgery. So I was like, oh my goodness, hallelujah. People would pay tens of thousands of pounds for this, to get it done privately. So privileged to have that. And I said to him, again, I worked with him. So I was like, right, this is what I think. I think it's here, here, here. And he's like, right, well, we'll see. And he came back and he was like, bang on, Gemma. So I'd started getting, for example, I'd started getting feelings of stabbing. So I hope you guys aren't like squeamish.
No, go for it.
So this is going to be lots of really, quite graphic information. So I could just be walking, and then I would get this like electric shock, which would feel like through my pee tube, my urethra. And when that zap came, a bit of pee would come out, and there was nothing I could do about it.
So you're just walking along the street, pissing yourself, involuntary.
Yeah, kind of.
My God, with a wee bit of pain and discomfort as well.
Yeah. And then trying to stop myself from shitting myself because I get shooty bum pain too.
To be fair, I get that. I might have endometriosis.
So I started getting that, and I was like, "Oh, this is new. I've never had this before." And then the shooty bum pain, and that is like lightning bolts, hot poker, Edward Scissorhands right up in your rectum. So painful. Can't sit down, can't lie down, can't go to the toilet. Nothing was working. Like it landed me in A&E quite a few times. And then
I think you by you saying shooty bum pain, that really downplays how fucking painful this is. Because for me, shooty
yeah.
bum pain's a fun wee term. A wee shooty bum pain. Oh, a wee shooty. But you're talking
See,
about red hot dagger pokers.
yeah. Within the endo community, if you say shooty bum pain, people will be like, I know exactly what that
Yeah.
means. But yeah, it's not, it's, yeah, I can't downplay it. It is the most excruciating pain I have ever felt in my life. I've given birth with no pain relief. And I would rather do that than this endo pain any day, honestly. And some of the pain that you feel maybe in your abdomen, in your womb, is I feel similar to early labor. And then obviously it progresses and goes through the roof. But I mean, the pain has absolutely floored me, and you do get used to living with it as well. But when you go to A&E, it's a bad one before you need to go there. But I also have it. So see when you're in, when you're exercising, and you're doing your leg raises, like you're lying on the back and you're bringing. So when I was doing that on my right hand side, I could feel this inside me, what my ovary like pulling. So every time my legs went down, this pulling sensation, and then it would go right down my leg, and I was like, oh my God, like I think there has to be something there too, and there was. Unfortunately, and then it was all along my abdomen wall and a few other bits. So they managed to remove that, but unfortunately he had to leave the stuff on my ovary because he couldn't cut that out because it would damage my ovary. But so he had to burn my ovary. But so that was 2021. So I was meant to get surgery, then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So everything got cancelled. So I was at the point where I couldn't live anymore. To be completely honest, like the impact it was having on my life, I was off work all the time. I was in so much pain. I wasn't sleeping. I was bleeding every day, really, really heavy, through clothes, waking up in the morning and your bed's covered in blood. There was times where I was standing in the theatre, and luckily, obviously, worked with a bunch of nurses, so they're all used to everything. But there would be times where I'd be standing there in an operation, and these operations could go on for hours, and whoosh, all this blood, and I'm bleeding through my scrubs. So it would be off to the supply store to get those netty knickers that you get in the hospital and those huge pads that you put on old people. Off to the toilet, someone go get me a set of scrubs, and have to clean myself up and go back in. And that happened so much.
That's crazy.
And I
Honestly,
used to
that's what
be,
it is. And the pain's like obviously debilitating as well. The fact that you were off work for weeks and weeks and weeks.
like I've had multiple absences. It's not just, and my worst flare up lasted about 6 weeks. I'm always in a constant state of pain.
Yeah.
Every day I'm in pain. Some days when you say it's a good day, it's just like a wee niggle. And you do build up a tolerance to it. And I'm on medication obviously for that too. But when you're like flaring, it's not just the pain. So you can either have constipation, diarrhea, bleeding really heavy, extreme bloating.
That bloating is wild. Like Kyle, when Gemma says extreme bloating, she means extreme bloating. The two photos that you sent me, it was like the day before and the day after, and it looked like you were pregnant, like from nowhere, from literally nowhere.
Yeah, and I mean it's when it gets like that as well. it's so painful, so uncomfortable, like wearing clothes, even something touching it. So like I never wear jeans anymore. I love jeans. I can't cope with the waistband and the restriction. And sometimes actually if I put jeans on, it'll spark it off.
Right.
So I live in leggings and jumpers and hoodies. Which when you're a girl who loves her clothes, it's shit, you
Yeah.
know, and it's all these different parts that impact your life. So I have a real, like, I speak to Gary really openly about this, Kyle, and I'll send him photos and stuff. And I remember when I was sending you my weight and my like measurements and stuff like that, and I was saying about my bloat, and I was like, listen, I can go up by about 5 kilos. And you
Wild.
were like, nah, no way. And then I sent you the proof, and you were like, holy shit.
Never seen anything like it in my life. Genuinely never seen anything like it in my life.
Within a day, overnight, up by 5 kilos.
Yeah.
Is there, like you also touched on the fact that jeans can make it flare a little bit, but is there anything else that you know or are aware of that makes the kind of flares happen?
Stress, stress, lack of sleep, intensive exercise, certain foods. So I can't eat garlic anymore. It kills me. And so way back, I was misdiagnosed for years. I was told I had IBS and kidney stones. And garlic can also trigger IBS. So I never really thought anything of it. But then, you know, things were getting really, really bad and pain was getting really bad. And I was like, surely to God, like garlic can't be doing that to me. And then obviously years down the line, I got my diagnosis. But
Turns out you're a vampire.
yeah, I mean, I'm pale enough too, but I've got a bit of thick tan on. So, and so vigorous exercise as well. So like I couldn't do a HIIT class. That would ruin me.
Yeah.
I couldn't run. That would ruin me. Spinning has been really good because it's like low impact, but sometimes if I've pushed myself, or see when you're like sprinting in your spin, like that. So I have to like really kind of pull it back a bit and work on like slow, kind of higher resistance than kind of fast stuff. Your cycle as well, like our cycles get really messed up. So obviously for a woman, it kind of varies between a 28-day to 31-day cycle of their ovulation and their periods. And not everybody, but certainly for me, if I'm, you know, in the run up to getting my period, everything ramps up as well. So there's that. And also when one of the telltale signs for people when they're if they have endometriosis and they haven't been diagnosed is, for me at the start, it was I've always had really, really heavy periods ever since I was a young girl. And I was just told, well, that's what happens when you're a woman. They're heavy, they're painful. And so this is how it all started for me. So I'll explain that to you. Then I started my periods when I was 14 and it hit me like a freight train. And pain, really heavy bleeding, lots of leg pain, and just cramping constantly, hot sweats, diarrhea. And my mum also had really heavy periods. So she was like, you're maybe just like me, really heavy, that, you know, here's what we can do kind of thing. But it got worse and worse, and it would absolutely floor me. I couldn't concentrate in class. I couldn't sit down. I was having multiple absences every single month off school. And I remember one time we had a wee nurse's office and it had the most comfiest bed. It was amazing. And I was in agony and I was bleeding really heavy and I was lying on the bed. And I said, I need to go home. Can you phone my mum or my dad? 14 years old, I had bled through my jeans at school. And you can imagine what boys would do to you when they seen that at that age.
I'm more surprised that you got to wear jeans to school.
Oh, we don't have uniforms here. That's
quick side note.
No uniforms in Shetland.
There you go.
And no trees. Some trees. So yeah, I bled through. So I was lying in the office, mortified, crying in agony. And I remember the only thing that helped the pain, and I used to do this all the time as a child and thought it was normal, was taking my hands and like shoving them right into my belly and pushing and bending over and pushing in as much as I could just to alleviate that pain. So I would sit like that all the time. And my dad came to pick me up and he had to carry me out of the school because I couldn't walk.
In that much pain.
Mm-hmm. And my mom was like, no, this isn't right. We're going to the doctor. So we went to the doctor. And at 14 years old, I got put on the pill.
Wow.
Because that'll fix everything.
Yeah.
Because, the pill, just run it over. Just take it all the time. Don't have that gap, and then you won't get your period, and that'll fix everything. So I was on the pill for years, and that messes with your head and your body. And I would get migraines, and so fast forward to being in Glasgow with you guys, and I started to get this really bad bouts of pain right in the center of my abdomen, but just like under my rib cage. And it was horrific, and it would keep me awake at night. And I would have some absences of college and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And we'd go to my doctors whenever I came back to Shetland, and they were like, oh, your bloods are fine. This is fine. It's maybe a bit of IBS. Could be gallstones. I was too young for gallstones. So this went on, and then it started getting worse in my last year of college, I think, being more stressed. And then fast forward, graduated, came back to Shetland, and this pain got worse. And one night my mum took me to A&E, and I got diagnosed with kidney stones. And there was nothing that we could do. Got sent for a scan on my kidneys. They didn't see anything. A couple more bouts of renal colic in A&E. And again, that was it. So this went on for a little while. Meanwhile, my periods were getting worse. My cycle was getting shorter and shorter. So I'd gone from a 31-day cycle down to a 28-day cycle, then a 24. And I was like, what is going on here? And my period was getting longer and heavier. And I went to a gynecologist. I went to my doctor and got referred to a gynecologist. And it was awful. It was horrendous. I went in, I was in my early 20s. I certainly would not put up for that now, but I went in and she was on her phone and she was sitting and she was like, go sit down on her phone.
Whereabouts was this?
In Shetland.
Shetland.
Mm-hmm. She was a visiting gynecologist. And she's like, ha ha ha, ping, 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 texting on her phone. And I'm sat there like, really? And then she was like, what are you here for? And she wasn't even making eye contact with me. So anyway, explained what was going on. She wasn't listening to me. And then she was like, on the bed. And I'm like, okay, like what's happening here, And then she did just a little, and then that was it, And I was like,
a little looky.
Yeah, it was, and then she was like, so I'm not prepared to mutilate your genitals. And I was like, what? I'm not and she's like, I'll lose my license. There's nothing I can do for you. And I was like, whoa, this is not like, I'm not coming for a designer vagina. I don't know what you're thinking is going on here. And I'd waited back then we didn't have gynae services in Shetland. So I'd waited so long. The waiting list was huge. I pinned all my hopes on this. And she dismissed me. She didn't listen to me. She was on her phone, didn't properly examine me because I've had lots of examinations. So I know that wasn't a proper examination. And then told me she wasn't going to mutilate my vagina. Yeah. And then said bye. And I walked out there and I was howling. And I phoned my mum and I was like, what do I do? So this went on and on and on because I got discharged. And then I started experiencing the most horrific hip pain. And I couldn't walk. And it was keeping me awake at night. And it was like grating pain. And I ended up off work. I couldn't drive, couldn't do my job. Folk thought I was at it. Oh, Gemma's being lazy. She can't be bothered, blah, blah, blah. She's young. And I was working in the hospital, an outpatients department. And one of the nurses who was, sadly, she's no longer with us, took me aside. She was like, right, honey, come into my room. What's going on? And she says, I've noticed this. And I was like, I don't know. And no one's listening to me. I feel like I'm going crazy. I keep on getting told I've got IBS. I genuinely thought that I had a mental health condition, that I was manifesting this in my body. And I was like, do I have Munchausen's? Or do I have cancer? And it's going to be missed. And by that point, it's too late. You know, that's where I was getting to, because I've been going back and forth for years. Oh, your bloods are fine. And she was like, I had endometriosis and I had to get a hysterectomy because of it. I think you've got it. Come with me. And she dragged me into the office of the gynecologist that was up visiting, who was fantastic. And she was like, tell her everything you've told me. And I told her, and she was like, you need to go to your doctor. You need to get a referral to gynae. I think you do have this. And that was what got the ball rolling for me.
That was sheer luck as
2018.
well, because you'd
Completely.
been dismissed for years and years and years. Oh, it's IBS, it's kidney stones, there's nothing we can do. And you got so fucking lucky that she just recognised a wee bit of what she went through and you. Touching on that as well, does this make you think, I mean, I probably know the answer before I even ask this question, but do you believe that there is so many women out there who is undiagnosed with endometriosis because people are they're either ignorant to it, or they don't know enough about it, or they just can't be bothered doing the right tests?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. So my own experience and so many other people that I've spoken to, it is passed off as women are supposed to have heavy, painful periods. That's just what happens. It's part of life. Deal with it. Here's the pill. Take some paracetamol and ibuprofen. I can't walk, and you're saying paracetamol and ibuprofen is going to help me, you know. And then also, and I've got to be really careful here, because I don't want to knock the NHS, because we're so lucky to have them. But unfortunately, there is a discrepancy through it. And so I've met, my current GP is fantastic, but previously I have had older males who, you know, way back in the day when they did their training, so much is advanced, and I question, you know, how much CPD have you done about gynecological conditions, because you to me you seem like you really don't know what you're talking about here. And then lack of funding as well, you know, like it's a specialized sector, so you know, if someone's not shown an interest in that, they're not going to learn about it as much, you know. And lack of education for when you're younger as well, you know, like we never got taught anything about that at school.
Never heard about it at all until
it's like that scene in Mean Girls, you know, have sex, you'll catch chlamydia and die, you know. That's what it was like, you know. That was the education. There was nothing about what's normal, what's not normal, what you should do if you notice these things. And so nobody knew. Boys and men certainly really don't know much about it. And so women are going to their GPs and they're being fobbed off. And sometimes as well, certainly depending on what type of person you are, like way back, I would go and I'd be like, okay, I'll take my little prescription and I'll go. Whereas now I'm like, no, I'm not happy with that. But that is years of me working within the NHS that I feel confident to do that. But the amount of people that go and just get sent away, and then the confidence is shattered. They're made to feel like they don't matter, that what they're experiencing is nothing, or that they're, you know, have a mental health problem, and they've been dismissed and they don't go back because they can't cope, because it has taken them every ounce of strength to pick themselves in and walk up in that door and say, I'm having problems with my intimate areas, which for some people is a huge deal, and to be examined, and then they're poo-pooed.
Is there, to your knowledge, is there somewhere that they could go if they keep getting turned away from GPs and NHS? Is there support groups, or should there be support groups in their local area?
There's two options here as well with that. So if you are going to your GP and you're constantly getting knocked back, or they refuse to give you a referral, what you can do is, one, you can ask for the reason why they're refusing to refer you in writing. Once you ask them to put pen to paper, they're a bit like, oh, we'll refer you.
Yeah.
If you get that in writing, you then can form a complaint. You go to the head of primary care services and you can put a complaint in and ask for this to be looked into, and you can hopefully get your referral. If you are hitting your head off a brick wall and you've been going back and forth for ages and feeling like you're going crazy, there is support groups out there. I had someone message me yesterday actually who had thankfully, a person that I know, she had been to this person for a treatment, and obviously they'd gotten into this conversation, and she said, contact Gemma, she runs the support group, and she messaged me and she says, I didn't know this existed.
Yeah.
Because again, this isn't talked about enough, but all over Scotland and the UK there is support groups, and you can look them up on Facebook. And in the support groups, they run webinars, they give you information, they have get-togethers, and it's just a nice, safe space to come to have a cry, a rant, get together with people that are in the same boat as you. Unfortunately, when I first got diagnosed, there was nothing in Shetland, and I really...
What age did you eventually get diagnosed?
So I was 28.
Fucking hell, that is late on, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now obviously there wasn't any support groups in Shetland for you at the time.
No.
But I do believe that is going to be changing in the very
Well,
near
already
future,
has.
hopefully. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so I started up sport group here 3 years ago.
Nice.
It was kind of happened really quickly. And I was a bit like, oh my God, what am I doing? Imposter syndrome. Who am I thinking that I can do this? But very fortunate in the position that because I worked in the health board and, had really good relationships with senior members in the NHS in Shetland, they've been really supportive and have been really fully on board with it. And I kind of, I'll be completely honest with you, when I first thought to do it, I really didn't realize the minefield that I was going to be navigating. And thankfully, someone in the North Highlands who has connections to Shetland already had seen something in the local media about the support group and reached out and messaged me and said, I will add you to a group chat with all of Scotland. And I was like, oh my God, there's other people there. And it just, because I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, have I got myself in too deep? And they've been great. They've been these people have been doing it for years. So they took my hand and led me, and they were, they've been so good to kind of sound things off of.
Good. So you're just kind of trying to spread more awareness and stuff and show people that there is support there and there is a safe space that you can come to, like you said, for a wee cry or a wee moan, and people are going to listen to you because, again, like looking at it from the outside in, it's easy to see why people would be like, oh, Gemma's just being dramatic again. Do you know what I mean? When in reality, you're fucking suffering like nothing I can explain. But what's the next steps then? So what is next for Gemma and in the endo community? What have you got planned?
So I'm in the process of trying to get some funding, which has been a bit tricky because I'm not a registered charity. So that has been a whole thing to try and kind of navigate. But I think I've managed to find a way to get some pennies, because I want to be able to run a group in Shetland and do things that can bring us together, that's good for our health and our well-being. One of the things that I experienced with my endo was there's lots of people go like, do yoga, get a massage, do this, do that. It all costs money and it's all private. And if you're having multiple bouts of being off work, you're losing money. You can't afford to pump money into these things. So what my vision for the group was to be able to put on classes that they can come to that will give them some sort of physical relief, mental relief, and try and navigate the life of living with chronic pain, and like holistically, that we're not constantly like having to pump ourselves full of painkillers. Is there a way that we can manage this other than that? For me, that's what I try and do for myself, because really strong painkillers, I can't drive, I can't do my job. So there's that side of things. We're having like informal get-togethers, more information sessions. And then I am also linked up with the whole of Scotland, like I said, and I have just today got my invite to go to Parliament to represent Shetland.
Come on. That in Edinburgh?
Yeah.
Amazing.
In March. So I was like, RSVP straight away to bag my spot. So that is an event where, so it's in Endometriosis Action Month / Awareness Month. And obviously with the whole of Scottish Parliament, and it's just an opportunity to tell our stories, speak to them, get their support, get them to kind of start actioning things more, pushing it more in Parliament and networking. I went 2 years ago and it was an amazing opportunity, so I'm delighted to be going back.
Well, it's going to be so exciting. Plus, it's allowing you to actually educate the Parliament, the politicians, and the people that can help.
Yeah.
Because I sorry, on you go.
I feel like as well, I should probably kind of say like what like symptoms and stuff that people could be experiencing, because there might be people watching this thinking, well, what can I experience?
Yes.
So a variety of different things. And you're typically, if you look it up online, you'll see like painful sex, heavy bleeding, upset with your bowels, bloating, but it can be so much more. So you can have pain during sex, you can have pain after sex, it can happen a wee bit after. You can bleed after sex, you can have like really messed up cycles. So again, like I was explaining earlier, you could have, for me, before I got my first surgery, I'd been bleeding every day for 18 months. You can have bowel issues, diarrhea, constipation, pain while peeing, pain while pooing, leg pain, migraines, intensive pelvic pain. You can have pain breathing. So it can be on your lungs, it can be in your diaphragm. So you collapse lungs, struggling to breathe, problems with your kidneys, blood in your urine, because it can obviously affect people's kidneys. The list goes on. So it isn't just one thing. And if you're experiencing one of those symptoms or a couple of those symptoms, what you should do is write everything down and keep a diary. Make a pattern, form a pattern of the behavior of this, when does it happen? Does it happen the same time every month? Does it happen every time I have sex? And form this story. Keep a your pain scale out of 1 to 10, record that and put as much information in. And even if you think it's not relevant, and a lot of it I did think it wasn't relevant, put it down anyway and come with this and stick it in front of your doctor and say, this is what I'm experiencing.
100%.
And that will meet the criteria for a referral.
Right. I tried to look at the stats before we jumped on this, because similar to Gary, I've known a girl I used to work with. She had endometriosis. Like yourself, it was a fucking siege to get diagnosed. I think when they talk about stats, I think it takes on average between 6 and 9 years to get a proper diagnosis for most people. And
it's gone up.
Yeah, and then
it's nearly 8 to 10 years now.
Class efficiency. But then they're saying, like, it's probably hard to get a stat on it, but they estimate there's 1 in 4 women that potentially have endometriosis. Wow,
that is massive numbers.
176 million people across the world have it. And that's the ones we know of.
I was going to say, think how many people we don't know of. That is crazy numbers, Kyle.
No, the reason I was just bringing it up is because obviously people will be listening to it, and a lot of the time it doesn't get diagnosed because it's put down to women should have, like, you should be. And I suppose it's like other women at times probably go, well, sure, my periods are tough, like you don't have endometriosis, where it probably is fair to say that not every woman who has a heavy period has endometriosis, but just at the same time, like, it could be. So it's probably worthwhile getting checked out if you have it.
Absolutely. And periods aren't actually supposed to be really painful. That is not okay. So we've all been growing up and we've been told our whole lives that they are quite painful. That's actually not normal. And there's other conditions as well that can also cause this as well. It's not just, endometriosis that can cause the pain. You could have fibroids, cysts, adenomyosis. There is multiple other things, but you should not, if you are having to take multiple pain relief, days off work, unable to walk, scalding yourself with a hot water bottle every single month, that's not normal.
Get that shit checked.
That looked at. It can also, another thing as well is infertility. So it can cause infertility. So if you are, because there's another thing called silent endo. So you can have endometriosis and not have any of the symptoms. And then you try and conceive and all of a sudden you can't conceive. And everything's fine and you've never had any problems and your bloods are looking good. And it's just not happening. And then they go for surgery. So in the NHS, if you've been trying to conceive for about 2 years and you can't, they'll have a wee look and see what's going on. And they go in and there's endometriosis. And the person's like, oh my God, I never. So if you're also been trying to conceive and you're struggling and you're thinking, what's going on here? It could be that.
Yeah, that's crazy. Go and get it checked. If you're listening, you're experiencing any of this shit, go and get it checked and do not stop until you get a diagnosis. Or at least they tell you definitely don't have it, but get it.
You can always ask for a second opinion. Yeah. And if you don't feel confident and you feel like you're being gaslit, which is a big problem within the medical community, take someone with you. And unfortunately, it has been shown, the stats have come through that people who have taken their male partners with them are listened to more and get a referral.
Of course. It's like taking your car to a fucking car garage, isn't it? Terrible example. You know what I mean?
Jen knows more about cars than I do, to be fair. But I was going to say, see your support group, Gemma. Like, you need to be from Shetland to be part of that, or what does that look like for you?
So yeah, there's support groups all over Scotland. So if someone messages me and they say like they're not from Shetland and I'll find out where they are and I'll put them in contact with someone in that area. But there's all over Scotland. So what they can do is if someone's watched this and think, oh, I'm not sure, easy drop the page a message and I'll link you up with the right person. But there is Glasgow, Edinburgh, Dundee, the Highlands, like we covered the whole of Scotland. Obviously, logistically, locations you might be too far away, but they do a lot of virtual support too. So don't worry if you're not near. You can do the virtual side of things as well.
Amazing. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll get in touch with you after we finish recording and I'll get some links off of you. So direct links to certain Facebook groups that you can forward people to, and I'll put them in the show notes beneath this episode so people's got like a direct link that they can follow. Or if anybody wants to reach out to us, we can then get in touch with Gemma and then she can send us some wee links through as well. That sound all right?
Yeah, perfect.
Right. Talk to us about, obviously you have been living with us for a very, very long time, but you've not let it stop you in terms of getting shit done and living your life. I know it's been debilitating at times, but you've still done some incredible stuff, like what you mentioned at the start of the episode. You had your hike to Everest. You moved to Glasgow for a short period of time as well, from Shetland to study and stuff like that as well. So
I love, mate, how you followed up like fucking endometriosis to Everest and you moved to Glasgow.
Moving to Glasgow.
And you moved to Glasgow. Fucking round of applause.
The cream of the crop. I was leaving that to the end. That was the cherry on top of the cake.
Highlight of my life.
Talk to us. I mean, if it wasn't for you moving to Glasgow, you wouldn't be on this fucking podcast.
Exactly. I wouldn't have my best friend.
Talk to us about your hike to Everest, because what was that like? I mean, what was that like doing the hike to Everest with endometriosis?
So I've actually done two. So I've done Kilimanjaro. So I did that in 2014, and that was before my diagnosis. Wow. And then I did Everest in 2018. Two very different treks. Everest was actually a bit of a mindfuck. In the sense of when you were climbing Kili, it's a mountain on the flat, so you can see the top. And and you're always looking up, and you know where you're going. So you felt like you were reaching that point. But Everest, you're trekking through the Himalayas, you're up, you're down, you're up, you're this, yeah. And you're like, right, I can just get to that next point, after 10 hours of trekking. And then you get there, and then you see the roadway, and and like that sinking feeling. And so you really have to, it's all in your head. I'm not going to advise it. You could probably go there relatively unfit, but it's the mental strength that gets you through it. But definitely train. Don't go untrained. But it was that was really tough. I had to really have words with myself every day. I got the most horrific altitude sickness. Oh my days. Oh my goodness, yeah. So when we were coming back down, because we were descending so quickly, then I woke up, and like it was like something out of a movie. My whole face was swollen, my lips were huge, my eyes were tiny, and then I could hear everyone else like, "Woo!" in the camp in the morning, and I was like, what is going on? And we all came out like we'd had some like shellfish reaction or something. It was so funny. But no, I mean, absolutely life-changing experience. There was I went on my own, but I met in with people at Heathrow. So complete strangers. You don't, but we all have one thing in common, is the desire to do this. And I've made some friends for life by doing it as well. People were there doing it. Everyone was doing it for charity. I did it for charity. And just hearing these people's stories as to why they were, people had lost children, people were doing it for mental health, or, ex-soldiers doing it. It was just amazing to meet all these people, and we all rallied round each other and got each other through it. And because I was so poorly, I was at the back, and with the doctor, me and him got quite close, and he was amazing too. And it was just, I do have one regret though. I feel, because I felt so ill. So it was that way. I'd been fundraising. I'd raised thousands of pounds. I did it for mental health as well, and Help for Heroes. And so there was this pressure put on me. I was like, I have to do this. My whole island knows I'm doing this. I can't go back and say, oh, I didn't do it. So the pressure was on me, and I was like, head down, earphones in. I'd made a playlist of like motivational tunes. So here I am having a rave in the middle of the Himalayas, like just, and one foot in front of the other, that I didn't stop enough to take it all in.
100%. You were just thinking, I need to get this done, and you didn't appreciate the surroundings as much.
No, the most beautiful place I have ever been. And there's something about the mountains, and other people who go into the mountains and trek mountains will completely get this.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have done quite a few in Scotland, haven't you? There's just something about it.
I agree.
And you can't describe that feeling.
Yeah. See, if you were to give me the choice between sea and mountains all day long.
Oh, 100%.
Mountains
absolutely.
All day long. Kyle, what about you? Sea or mountains?
Mountains, but I was going to say, just on Gemma's point about being fatigued, I was going to say I've done the West Highland Way, and I still stick by the fact that I've done fucking marathons, done all sorts of competitions. The West Highland Way was genuinely the hardest thing that I've ever done. I cried on day 4. I'm not even ashamed to admit it. I had to walk up ahead to my dad crying down my hips were in bits. Jen came back.
Was like, the West Highland Way, just tell people what it is.
It's a trip through the Highlands on the west side.
How long is that? How far is it?
Well, I think it's 100 miles. It's a walk essentially from Glasgow up through to Fort William. You go through the Highlands, but it took us. We done it in 5 days. You can do it over 7. But
no wonder you were crying.
Yeah, no, I know. My dad was like, "Well, I'll get you for your birthday," and I was like, "Fuck, I don't ever want a present from you again." But no, just on that, like I remember Jen when I got home to Ireland. She was like, "Oh, did you get any good pictures and videos?" I was like, "Jen, I was fucked." Genuinely, like I was looking through and going, "This looks class," but I'm not stopping, because if you stop, you're fucked. And I was like, "I'm not getting my phone out." I'm like, it's just a case of head down or head up and just keep going. Like,
yeah. I mean, to be honest, like. I should have known, because I got altitude sickness when I was doing Kili as well, and I very nearly didn't make it. sheer grit, determination, but more so, like, I didn't want to be embarrassed. That was what got me through. I was like, I can't. And the our leader that was ex-army, and I'm the type of person, like, you need to piss me off. You need to really get to me, and I'm going to be like, right, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to do this. So he was giving me the nicey approach, and we'd had a 14-hour day. We'd got to base camp. We camped. We were above the clouds. It was like -15 at night time. Like, my snot was frozen in my hair. Like, I was cold. And we'd gone to bed at 7 o'clock at night to get back up at half 11 and set off. And I hadn't slept because I was so cold. And then we set off cold. And that was a complete disaster. So you couldn't warm up, and we were going so slowly, and my temperature started to drop, and I started to really, really struggle. And I remember, I think I kind of passed out a bit. Like, we sat down, and next thing I remember is him, like, shaking me and waking me up, and he's like, if you don't get moving in the next 10 seconds, I'm sending you back down. Get your ass up that mountain. And I was like, ah! And I was crying, and I cried the whole way up, snot pouring. And then you hit one of the points and you stop, and then you go to the next point when you hit the peak of the mountain. And I mean, people were ill. There was quite a few people that didn't make it. But that feeling, but I was so ill, I didn't get enough time at the top. It was literally touch the sign, get your photo, get back down.
That's crazy. When we were in, this is nowhere near. How high is Kilimanjaro in meters?
Oh God, now you're at 4,950, I think.
Almost 5,000 meters.
Yeah.
Oh, so the mountain that we climbed in Canada was 2,998, so nearly 3,000 meters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rachel didn't actually make it to the summit because she got altitude sickness about 200 meters from the top. We could see the
Oh.
top, her full face, but similar to yours, on was it Everest that you got all bloated? Yeah, her lips went up, her tongue swole that she couldn't speak to me. So she was trying to tell me that she was not feeling well and she couldn't get the words out. And we
Mm-hmm.
were on this really, really thin ledge that you couldn't put both feet together because it was so tight. You had to go like
Oh.
one in front of the other.
Mm-hmm.
You wobbled. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, this is not the fucking time to wobble because
No.
here we go straight down. So I had to leave her in a little ducat with some food and water.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and summited, took a photo for her and came back down and got her. But by the time I came back down, she'd gathered herself. She was okay. I made sure she
Yeah.
was right before I left. It was just because we had ascended very quickly, and she's well
Mm-hmm.
not used to that. Like our highest
No.
goal is Ben Nevis, which is 1,345. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that the one that we climbed was like two and a half times the size of Nevis or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just we weren't accustomed to it, we weren't used to it. But we seen like Canadians, like ultra runners and fell runners who are
Oh,
running up this mountain,
yeah.
running, and we're like fucking. It took us 12 and a half hours to from
Yeah.
start to finish. 12 and a half hours. We started when it was dark, and we finished when it was dark, and it was just it was an experience, shall we say?
Well, that's it. You've got your pros, and you've got your people who take it really seriously. Then you've got your people who are in competition to beat other people there. So there's so much traffic on the mountain as well that actually can get a bit
Yeah,
dangerous. So there's a bit in Kilimanjaro called the Branco Wall, and it is vast. I mean, I got there and I went, shit. Like, I'd read about it, but I was like, oh my God. At one point, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm not
yeah,
scared of heights, but I mean, it's like this. So we start scaling up this wall, and we were a big group, and there was this was where a couple of other trails merged together on the mountain, and people were starting to get a bit annoyed, feeling that we were holding them up because we were such a big group. And I had stopped to let somebody pass, but someone else got mad and pushed, and I was standing at the edge, huge drop, massive drop, and they pushed and banged into me, and I started to fall back, and my leader seen it and grabbed me and pulled me back in. Honestly, in that moment, I thought, I'm a goner.
yeah.
And and then he got me and he's like, sit down. And then next thing, it was like Spider-Man running up the wall of the mountain and got this guy and just went mental at him, because there's an etiquette on mountains as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
You look after people, you don't do stuff like that. So I didn't tell my mum that happened, because she was like, you're never doing it again.
Well, you did tell your mum or you didn't?
Well, I didn't tell her at the time. It was only a wee
Aye.
while after, and she was like, "Oh my God." But no, absolutely amazing. And I think completely life-changing, going through those vast mountains and just seeing the different side of the world, and especially Nepal. Nepalese people are so friendly, the villagers, the children, and it puts a lot into perspective.
Yeah, 100%.
You see these huge mountains and you're looking at them and you're thinking, wow, like everything that's going on in my head and what's bothering me feels tiny just now.
Yes, I completely agree. It does. It brings you kind of almost back to reality a
Mm-hmm.
wee bit as well. But did you experience any endo symptoms when you were hiking? Is there anything you had to deal with when you were doing the trip?
Yeah. Yeah, I pretty much every day, to be honest, and I wasn't sleeping very well. So I was terrified. That's another thing about endo is it likes to mess with you. So see if you've got like a wedding or a holiday or whatever, and you can be absolutely fine, and you've got this one thing, and then it goes, "Hi, I'm going to
Yeah,
ruin this for you." So I was psychologically, that really messes with you, and I find myself like not doing as much anymore in my life because I'm scared in case I get stuck. So I have been in situations where I've been out hill walking here, and my legs have gone, and I'm like, shit, am I gonna have to phone the Coast
yeah,
Guard? So I was terrified that that was going to happen. Um, Luckily, there was one day where I was really quite poorly, and it was a climatization day where they were going up really quickly and coming back. And I skipped that day and just stayed and rested and chilled with the dogs, because there's dogs and cats all over the mountain. And so I just stayed and chilled with them and sunbathed, and it was beautiful. But inside, I felt like a complete failure,
yeah,
because I was like, here I am. These people are going to be thinking that I'm not fit enough and that I shouldn't have done this. And, you know, I cried so much, and I was like, I can't describe that feeling. Like, it was
yeah.
just it was soul destroying. But a day's rest, and then I managed to obviously do it. But I don't know if I could do it now.
Really?
I don't know. Like, I've been getting itchy feet, and I've been looking all over the world where I can go. And I would love to, but it's gotten so bad for me that I'm terrified if I'm up a
Yeah.
mountain and something happens to
Well,
me.
make it easy for you. Mainland Scotland, we've got 282 Monroes. There you
I'm
go.
like, Daddy,
Hi.
come rescue me.
There you go. And they're not as high as fucking 5,000 meters, so you're fine.
Plus, you've got to pay for the helicopter to come and get you. So I'm like, I can't afford that.
If you've done Kilimanjaro and Everest, I mean, you've done them all.
I would love to go to Patagonia. That is just, oh,
Stunning, isn't it? It's
mhm.
absolutely stunning. So it's like Chile, Argentina.
Yeah,
I think, is it just Chile and Argentina? Is it Peru as well? Or is that different in Peru?
I'm not sure.
Aye, aye. Anyway, it's fucking stunning wherever it is. But right, I think we need to start wrapping up because we need to get going. Kyle's got some business to attend to. But listen, Gemma, that was absolutely class. Thank you so much for coming on to talk. And yeah,
Problem.
you're more than welcome to come on anytime again and chat more shit because it was amazing. And I'm sure people, learned a lot from you talking about your experiences with endo and how much it's affected you, but how much you've not let it stop you.
Hmm.
I think I've
Um,
learned a lot as well, so appreciate that. Cheers, mate.
100%. That was such an interesting episode.
And
Thank
there's
you.
so much more
If
to
you don't,
say as well, but it's hard to put it all in a nutshell.
yeah.
So there'll be loads of things that I've not covered in this, but people can easily ask questions.
Well, there'll be a part two then. Fuck it.
Tune in.
If you don't mind sharing your socials tag, tell everybody where they can find you.
Mhm.
Tell us where can they find you.
So on Facebook, it's called Endometriosis Support Shetland. And there's also a private group as well that you can join, and that's where we have more chatter and stuff in that. And you just drop me a message on the page and I'll get back to you.
Excellent. What about any personal? Do you want to share your personal stuff on Instagram or anything like that? You don't need to if you don't want to.
Oh, well, I could flog my business, couldn't I?
There you go. That's it. Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, my little side business that I do is sports and remedial massage and ASMR massage. I don't whisper in your ear, it's okay. And so I'm GG Massage Therapy, and you'll find me on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Excellent. I'll link it in the show notes so people can get that direct link. Kyle, where can they find you, mate?
I was just about to say ASMR massage. I was completely going to send you a message there until you said you didn't whisper in my ear. It's not happening anymore.
Soft touch.
It's Kyle_biofitness1 on Instagram.
Happy days.
Yeah, where can they find you?
At GMAC_health and fitness on Instagram. As always, I'll link everything in the show notes and the description below. Thank you, Dave and Toby, for the tunes. And yeah, see you all next week, everybody. Thanks again, Gemma.
Thank you. Nice to see you guys.